Hello, everybody, and welcome in to the Super Bowl podcast, episode number 11, live from the GC Recording Labs. My name is Braden Dorman. Alongside me, as always, David Arnold, Harper Hauk, and a very exciting guest today, the WAC tournament MVP himself in the building, Ray Harrison. Ray, thanks so much for coming on, man.
I appreciate y'all for having me, man. I'm excited.
We've got a lot to talk about. I mean, a big March Madness run. You just recently declared for the NBA draft. Like, a lot to talk about, a lot coming in the future and a lot in the past. So we're really excited to dive in. First, might as well talk about the NBA, right? The NBA playoffs just started. These are teams that potentially you're on here within the next year. So it's kind of an exciting thing. Right off the bat, Ray, I got to ask you, is there a team that sticks out to you? I don't know how much you watch the NBA. I know you're more of a college guy right now, but is there a team that you're like, okay, I could see them going all the way to the finals?
I want the Lakers to win, but
Let's go.
Realistically, I'm gonna say I think it'll be somebody in the West. Maybe
I agree.
I want the Suns to win, bro.
Me too, man.
I want the Suns to
Nice.
win, but we're gonna see. We're gonna see how it goes.
I personally don't want the Lakers to win, man. I don't know why. I just don't want to see it. And I'm from Washington State, so rip to the Supersonics, man. But now that I'm here, like, the Suns are my new team, I think. So
Sure.
that's the team I'm rooting for. And I know David's got this crazy take, so let's hear it.
Yeah, so back in January on this podcast, sat right here and said that the Golden State Warriors are going to win the championship. They were the 9 seed at the time, and I said they'd sneak in as a 6 seed. And here we are, 6 seed Warriors against the Kings. I think they take care of the Kings, even though
down 1-0.
Down 1-0 at the time we're recording this. Played a good game, though. So, yeah, I'm riding with the Warriors as my team to go win it.
Wow, that's very bold of you, man.
Yeah,
They never win it.
Yeah, I
They
know.
never win it.
But hey, man.
No, that was good.
Yeah.
What about you, Harp?
Yeah, so kind of to go with Ray here, I'm going to go the city of L.A., okay? So I want to see both the Lakers and the Clippers make a run in the playoffs. They're not not per se my championship pick, but I would like to see both these teams do well. I want to see Russ get a ring if he can. Paul George is out, so it's going to be tough for the Clippers to do it. But I'm also a LeBron guy, and I love when LeBron and AD play together. So
Definitely. If
the Lakers or the Clips go far, that's cool with me.
Cool. And then as far as teams in the East, I don't know. I agree with Ray. I think the West has it this year.
Yeah,
they just
I
seem
agree. For sure.
Like they might be better, but once you get to the finals, 7 games, you never know. In the East, I think I like the Celtics. And I know they were there last year, but they really didn't lose anybody. Their core guys, I think they're solid. Tatum and Brown might be the last year they have together, with Brown potentially being gone.
Yeah.
But I think I'm leaning towards the Celtics. What about you? Anybody in the East that sticks out to you?
Miami or maybe the Bucks.
Yeah.
Both of them there.
Those are both your teams, right?
Well, so I'm a Miami Heat fan, so
They won. They won game 1, right?
They did.
Yeah.
They did. So we lost Hero though, which hurts pretty bad. But I think Miami can actually do this as the 8th seed. Like, if any 8th seed, that they have the roster that's capable of making a run here. So I'm riding with them. Miami versus Golden State is my finals, which would be probably the craziest finals in history record-wise,
6
right?
and 8
versus 6.
Yeah.
Hey, this is March, man. This is March.
Not quite, but it's
Just kidding.
yeah. This is April.
Yeah, this is April, so you never know. What about you?
So wait, you had the Bucks or the Heat? You had one of the two?
One of them probably. Yeah.
Okay, and then you have Heat. Who did you have? You had Celtics?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, just for sakes of mixing it up, I want to go the Knicks on this one.
Oh.
I
The
think
Knickerbockers. Wow. All right.
I think Brunson, Randall, and Hart are really fun to play. Really fun to play with, and they're fun to watch. R.J. Barrett's still young, so I mean they're a pretty balanced team. I think they're 12th in offense and 10th in defense this past year, and I think the Knicks kind of mix it up here. And they got a favorable matchup against the Cavs first round. They're already up 1-0, so I want to see the Knicks go far.
That'd be fun.
A lot could happen.
that'd be
I
fun.
feel like just like in March Madness this year, there wasn't like a team that was like, oh, that team's going to win it, right? Like, there's so many teams that could do it this year, which is always exciting for a viewer. And we can get into it, what it feels like as a player. Just like, hey, anything can happen any day. Like, somebody can get hot. Let's go on a run. Before we get into that talk, I want to know, are there any, as you did declare for the draft, you could be playing with these guys soon. Are there any players, any schemes, any coaches, any teams that seem like, oh, that could be a good fit? Like, I could see myself playing there.
I mean, first, I feel like it definitely would just be a blessing just to get there in the first place.
Sure.
Absolutely.
But I mean, I don't know. I never really grew up like fantasizing playing for a team or anything. But I feel like probably somewhere closer to home, back on the East Coast, and maybe in like a smaller market, not like New York or
Sure.
you know,
Yeah.
probably somewhere maybe like I don't know, maybe
So would that be like a Charlotte or like
Possibly.
like an Atlanta? That's still pretty big.
possibly. But
Okay.
even at like as far as like somewhere in Texas, maybe like Houston or San Antonio,
Okay.
something
that.
like that.
And I
Did
know
you-
you got to give the professional answer. You can't. I'll take anything. Obviously, you will. But I didn't know if there was any like schemes. You're like, oh, I could fit there. Like I could make something happen.
Yeah, I've never really watched. I don't watch NBA that much, but I definitely haven't watched it enough to know like what would be a good fit for me. You know, I feel like it would definitely come down to at my position. There would have to be something open for like a point guard or a shooting guard or something like that, somewhere that they're not stacked. Like
Yeah.
say like in Atlanta they got Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. If you're a point guard or shooting guard going into that situation, you're probably not going to be
Yeah.
the guy for them.
Sure.
But
Growing up, did you have a team you watched more than others?
it was always the Cavs or the Miami Heat.
Yeah.
I grew up a LeBron James
Yeah,
fan. so
that's what's what I'm getting here.
Wherever
Same
he,
here.
wherever he went, that's where I went. So
Exactly.
I would say your game does reflect him a lot. Like an oversized guard at time. Like LeBron can take over. He can be that point guard, and that's what
Definitely.
you did down the stretch. And you're not afraid to go to the bucket. You're not afraid to draw the M1, but you can still shoot it from outside. You got to respect you.
Yeah.
So I like how I can see that. That makes sense. Cool.
yeah, for sure. I definitely feel like I'll be coming back on this podcast again because I just got compared to LeBron James.
Yeah, I mean, man.
That's nice.
Come on.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Did you know we have a LeBron hater in the room?
Hey man,
Uh-oh.
I wouldn't say I'm a hater.
I mean, I'm used to
You're
it.
either with him or you're against him, right?
Really though, I feel like there's no in between.
Honestly, yeah.
You either
That's
love him
fair.
or you
Yeah.
don't.
That's fair. It's kind of like Tom Brady, I would say.
Thanks.
I mean, with
Facts.
greatness, there comes, haters for sure.
Critics.
So, yeah, exactly. So,
Cool. Well, so that makes sense. Like, there's probably going to be some schemes that make sense once you are visiting teams. And you mentioned before the podcast, like, that's kind of the next phase for you. So I do want to know just kind of what was the thought process behind the decision to declare for the draft. I saw, that you did just like tweet out potentially like, hey, at the start of the year, one of my goals, right, was to go to the NBA draft. That was to declare. But during the season, I erased that goal because for whatever reason, you can maybe explain that. Maybe
sure.
things weren't going the way you thought they were going to right off the bat. But all of a sudden, that goal obviously was written back down and you made it happen. So what was that decision making?
Yeah. As far as just the decision to declare, I feel personally, it was never my personal decision to just declare. I was already, set on coming back to GCU for one more year. But when I went home, my Coach Drew, he brought it to my attention that he thought it'd be a good idea. So I kind of just trusted his judgment, and they let me know their plan, and it was pretty valid. So I was like, sure, let's go with it. But when I first did it, it didn't really seem real because this has been something that I've always been thinking about doing since I was 5, 6, 7 years old. So, but as far as that tweet, I mean, when I first came to GCU, of course, when I committed, I had very high hopes. I came here I didn't automatically just know that I was going to be able to declare for the draft.
Sure.
But it was, like I said, just a goal that I set for myself like I do every year. And when I first got here, I got off to a pretty rough start. Like it wasn't the transition for me it didn't just click immediately. So it kind of took me some time to get acclimated and get used to our system and gain some of my coach's trust. For me to kind of, bloom into the player that everybody got to see towards the end of the year.
yeah,
Yeah,
for
right.
sure. And it's been a crazy year for you, like transferring from Presbyterian to GCU. Like, can you describe kind of the differences between the two programs, or what kind of was the reasoning of that move?
Yeah, I feel like it definitely came from like an exposure standpoint. I feel like at my previous school, the resources weren't nearly the same as they are here at GCU.
Yeah.
And but as far as the people there, I mean, I loved if they had the resources that GCU had, I would have, I may not be sitting in this room right now, but they didn't. So I mean, I chose to come out here because I saw that they did have a good coach and good connections as far as
Right.
So that's mainly what went behind the decision.
Cool. That's cool. You said you were listening to Coach Drew's judgment about declaring for the draft. Someone who's played in the league like Coach Drew, what has there been some advice that stuck out to you? We're working with him the last year or so.
Yeah, the main thing that the main message that he got across to me was just that in order to make me stand out or be different from everybody, or not everybody, but talented basketball players who are trying to get from the college level to the NBA is just for me, he was saying that I needed to play hard all the time, give my absolute 100% best
Sure.
at all times. And I really wasn't. I'm not going to say that I didn't before, but I just wasn't used to having to play 100% on defense at all times, 100% on offense at all times. There would be times where I may take a play off on defense here or there, or take a play off on offense just because at my previous school, the load that I was having to deal with was I had to play almost 40 minutes a game,
Mm-hmm.
So it was hard for me to be able to score and then come back and guard the best player. And,
Yeah.
it was just something that my coach didn't ask of me at my previous school. But here he challenged me to be able to do some of those things. So, yeah.
Cool. I do feel like that's a difference there. Like, shoot, man, if you're playing 100% on defense, all of a sudden your shot's starting to feel a little weird, unless you're hot, and there
Right.
were many times where that was the case. I viewed you as kind of that stone cold killer. Like, you were that silent assassin, and I'm sure you hear that from your teammates, I would guess, because you didn't necessarily ever get vocal with another team. You didn't get in their face, and you were humble about it. But you just dropped points. You would go down and get a bucket, and you wouldn't say anything. Is that something you've always had? Is that always a trait? Because I just feel like, from a fan's perspective, here's personally, like, even here at GCU, like, we don't really know who Ray Harrison is. Like, is that just kind of always been the way you played?
Yeah. It's. I feel like I get it from my father, though, just because he's kind of that humble, like, quiet and reserved type of guy. So that's just kind of how I grew up, and that's just how I actually heard a quote, or not a quote, I just heard Steve Kerr, like, he was doing like a post-game interview where he was saying he feels like the way that people play basketball is how they really are in real life. And I kind of agree with it, just because, like, I am that way off the court as well. I'm not somebody who is, very vocal or wanting to be the center of attention all the time, or, so I kind of have always just been a more laid back and reserved type of person. Most people won't really know me unless you're, we're having dealings with each other every day, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always been that way.
Cool. And
Yeah.
the thing is, like, every basketball team does need a couple of those guys that are letting people know. And
For sure.
I mean, honestly, we got a guy in here,
Yeah,
right?
we got a guy here right now. That's him over there.
We
in the
got
corner.
Walter
He's
Ellis
giggling.
in the corner over here. He knows, but I mean, if he hits a three in front of the other team's bench, you already know he's gonna let him know. He's gonna let him know.
Yeah.
But again, like, you need that to, like, it
do.
meshes, right? It
Good
meshes.
balance.
You do. You
Cool.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and do you think, like, your play style, right? Like, you get a bucket, go play D, get a bucket. Like, do you think that in a way gets in people's head of, like, you're just playing basketball, and just going to score, doing your job, staying committed to your task, and not being, I guess, distracted by any trash talk or any kind of chatter with other players. Do you think that gives you an advantage, or just allows you to lock in better?
Yeah, I feel like I just focus better that way. I mean, it's easy for me to, like, whenever I feel like a player is trying to come at me or challenge me in a vocal way, then I'll maybe say one or two things here or there, but it'll
Yeah,
never be
sure.
vocal enough to where people on TV can see it, and it'll just
Sure.
be something subtle,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just easier for me to focus. Like, if I hear somebody talking crazy, then I won't even entertain it, because that's all they're trying to do in the first place, is get a reaction out of you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Just let the game do the talking for you.
Right, obviously.
Yeah. I like that.
And we had Gabe on a couple months ago, and it was kind of similar for him. I do think he's very good at, like, there will be some big dudes that he's guarding that will just be talking the most smack, and he'll just be like, all right, and he just walks away.
Yeah.
And he probably does the little subtle things too, I'm sure. But I think that's impressive, and to have a group of guys that are, like, focused on one another, right?
Yeah.
And that's cool. Let's talk about this season. We had Gabe on 2 months ago. You guys had just lost at Seattle. You guys probably both remember that game, and it was one
at Seattle.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was a tough one.
that was the one you should have
Yeah.
won.
Yeah.
And we talked about how there were games throughout the year that you should have won that you didn't, and there were games that you probably could have lost that you ended up coming back and winning. It was a weird start to the year.
It was.
But you guys turned it on that Utah trip, and then you headed to Wack Vegas, and you guys went on a spectacular run, and
Yeah.
it was a whole lot of fun to
Crazy.
watch. And then that leads into March Madness. Can you just describe that entire 2 weeks and what that meant, how closely that team came together, and how you were feeling? Just all of you guys. Nobody could miss, man. It was unbelievable.
It was crazy. I honestly feel like it was just. I feel like it was, in a way, I feel like God had like a reward for us, but I feel like He kind of just made us wait for it. I feel like
sure.
all throughout the season and even in the start of the summer, we had worked for it, and obviously, whenever you're working for something, you want to see results, But sometimes it's just, it's all His timing. So we obviously would have wanted to win every game from the start to the finish, but in those 2 weeks, it was just, from the start of Utah, we didn't even know like what was happening at the time, like while we were there. But in Utah, we started it was Southern Utah. Southern Utah. We won that one. And the night before, we actually had a team meeting or whatever. Ivan called us together. So we met as a team, and I feel like that definitely was a good meeting for us, just because there were a lot of things that I felt like were going unsaid amongst each other as a team.
Yeah.
But once we kind of just put it all out there for each other to hear from one another in the same room, it kind of just, I feel like the respect that we have for each other kind of went all the way up.
Yeah.
And so when the respect went up, I feel like the way that we played the game, it just, it changed for the better. I feel like we, I don't know, like we were just willing to go the extra mile in whatever scenario, whether it was diving on a loose ball or getting a rebound, boxing out, just little things. I feel like it just made us want it more, just from one another and for one another, not
Yeah.
necessarily. But yeah, I'll end it there.
Cool. I thought there were one thing that struck out to me was it's cool that we have Walt in here, but all of a sudden Walt starts getting some more minutes like we've been waiting for all year.
As he should.
And then Noah starts playing a little bit more, and all of a sudden these two aren't missing at all.
Right.
And we're like, okay, these two need to be on the court.
Right.
And Chance can't miss, and
Right.
obviously you are going off. Gabe has his big game against
Yeah.
Seattle.
Seattle.
Yeah, Seattle.
It was just like if one person doesn't have their best game, somebody else is going to step up.
Yeah.
Really though.
Can you describe Wack Vegas just game to game and just how? I know there was one game where you felt you let the team down, but you came back against Southern Utah in the championship and you went off. Just how was that feeling? Just of camaraderie within the teammates.
Yeah. Going into the first game, we were still hot. I feel like we all had the same type of mentality. Like we're gonna take games one by one. So when we got there and we played UTA, one, I know for a fact personally I was livid in my just for my own reasons, but obviously when the Player of the Year award came out, I didn't feel like I was slighted or anything like that, because the guy who won it was deserving. His team was number one, so I respect that. But I honestly went into that was the first game I ever played. Like I was actually angry,
I like that. Yeah.
Like if you would have watched the game, you would actually be able to tell, because I was like talking to the crowd. I was pointing at my dad and stuff. I was just getting out of body. I was
A little more
acting
vocal than usual.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I ended up having a pretty good game then. We went on to win that one. And then our second game against Seattle, we knew it was going to be tough, but I've always known that it's hard to beat a team 3 times.
Man, I was saying that.
It's hard to beat a team 3 times. So I already knew they were coming into the game thinking they respected us, but not to the level that they should have, So when we got out there, you could just tell they had it going early on. I'm pretty sure in the first half, at halftime, we went into the locker room like we didn't know what we were gonna do, but we knew we were gonna figure something. We knew we had to figure something out. So we did. We came out in the second half. Seattle was second game, right?
Yeah, it was Seattle and then Sam Houston, I
Okay,
believe.
yeah. I thought I was tripping. But yeah, and that's the game Gabe ended up going absolutely
Bonkers.
crazy.
Yeah.
Like
That was crazy.
That was that was probably one of the best performances I've had from like a teammate on the court with me. And it was just fun to watch, bro. It was just, and it felt like I was just another guy out there, just being able to not relax, but they were focused on me, of course. So, like you said, it was just like the next man up, and he did his thing, man. I was so proud of him.
That's
But
cool.
yeah, he did that. We go into Sam Houston. By the way, after we won the Seattle game, it kind of felt like we won the championship. Then and there, I was like, because I feel like that was the only team that really gave us a lot of trouble. Like
Yeah.
we just didn't have an answer for them. And so when we got over that hump, I feel like it gave us an extra motivation almost, or just a little bit more fuel to the fire. Like, okay. So we went into the third game. Sam Houston, Player of the Year, Quay Grant. We playing against him. And so
And he did well.
He did.
He did well.
He did. He had a good game.
I was there, and I was talking smack. I'm like, I actually had a sign. I was like, the real MVP. Right. I promise I had a sign saying that. Jacob made it for me. Shout out Jacob Carter.
Yeah, shout out
Number
Jacob.
one manager.
Shout out Jacob.
But he made a sign for me. I was holding it up. I'm like, this is the real MVP right here. But Quay showed up. He did show up.
He did his thing. He did his thing.
But not
That's
enough.
why.
Not enough.
He did, yeah, it wasn't enough. I definitely gave my hats off. I respected him from the beginning, though, like I said, but he had a good game. And that was the game Kobe ended up just going crazy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It was like some of the stuff that was happening was just like you couldn't even make it up. You couldn't even explain it. It was just like, well, this is what's going on, so we're just gonna go with it. That's how we were as a team. Like we didn't really have I feel like we pride ourselves on just playing the game the right way. So whoever is open or whoever is hot will, have a good
Sure. game.
So he ended up getting hot, and that was all she wrote for the third game. I mean, so going into the fourth, against Southern Utah, we had already beat them. So we were just like, we knew we had to, give them the same type of respect as before. We weren't just going in like, man, we already beat these guys, so we're going to win. First of all, when I was watching the game the night before, seeing them play against Utah Valley.
Yeah.
That was a crazy game.
I was watching it on my phone. I forgot. I was with my dad. We were in the car. And just the ending of that game, I was just like, man. Because obviously Utah, I personally feel like Utah Valley may have been the better team.
Yeah, I agree.
And I feel like I'm not, we're not ducking no smoke. Let me just go ahead and put that on record. But we would have definitely rather played Southern Utah than Utah Valley.
And you can say that now,
For
right?
sure,
You
yeah,
can say
for
that
sure.
now.
But so it was just crazy how it all worked out. So we go into that game, and I feel like our confidence was just at it. Like I literally walked into the gym, like expecting to leave with a win. Like I didn't even it didn't even process in my mind that we could have lost. Like it didn't even seem that way. Like it was just like, okay, we're gonna win the championship and we're gonna go to March Madness. Like that's just how it was. And so, yeah, obviously I was able to have a pretty good game against them, and yeah, got those guys up out of there. So we come back to Phoenix the next day for Selection Sunday, and that was cool. And then that whole stretch felt like just a blink of an eye. Like
Yeah, right.
from the time we went to Southern Utah all the way to like us leaving Denver, coming back to Phoenix, it just felt like it all happened within the span of maybe like 2 to 3 days, But
Describe those memories. Like, I'm sure you're like, man, I wish I could have that back. I wish I could relive that. And I'm sure you still have vivid memories of it. And
For sure.
man, you're always going to have those.
for
But
sure.
just looking back at them, are there any moments where you're like, oh, like that was God. Like God had a hold of this team. And because I know this is a faith-based team. Like
Definitely.
it starts from the top with Coach Drew. And, I mean, that guy's a bold warrior for Christ. And there's all the guys are on this team are being brought up as warriors for Christ themselves.
Yeah.
Was there a moment in that stretch before we get into March Madness itself that was just like, wow, that was a God thing right there.
I honestly feel like, I know I said kind of like the whole season kind of, fits that.
Yeah.
But I don't know, a specific moment maybe. I don't know. I feel like honestly just the break that we had from before Southern Utah, like that space in between then to the beginning of that trip, I feel like, I don't know, like things just felt different, honestly. And I'm sure all my teammates can, attest to that. But yeah, I would say probably just that during that little stretch.
Yeah, and I think what's really cool with this team is that you all do come together and have your faith in common, and that goes deeper than just like teammates. Like that's brothers, like having that chemistry in that way. And I don't know, I was just wondering if that kind of the faith that you all had in each other, in the Lord, and just in this season, how much of a role did that play in that run? Because you guys look just like you were all on the same page, all together, and just playing with house money.
Yeah, really, though. I feel like I feel like he brought us together just at the right time. Like, the moment that we were in harmony as a team is just when we took off. But, I don't know. I feel like I said, from the beginning, we always knew what we were playing for,
Right.
But, God just had his own way of working things out, so.
Yeah, I like that. And you mentioned God's timing before and how, like, the beginning of the season didn't go the way you guys wanted it. Mm-hmm. But honestly, God probably put that in your guys' season for a reason so that you were able to perform the way you guys did in the season.
Absolutely. I believe that's 100% correct. I mean, everything I feel like we went through was just like we went through, various ups and downs, but I feel like it shaped us into the team that we needed to be,
Yeah, I mean, there's hills and valleys, and being in the valleys can prepare you for the hills and for those moments and build your character. Mm-hmm. And obviously that character was tested through the tournament, and you guys stuck together and certainly put on a show. It's really awesome.
It's cool. I mean, we always talk about just the work that we have as disciples and as an athlete, it's a little bit different, but you guys kind of put that work in, right? You put that work in, and God finally showed you, and you had to be patient, and he asked you to be patient, and I'm sure there were times where it was tough, but you guys finally got to reap those benefits, and you got to go to Denver, and you got to play in March Madness. And for me, it's the best tournament in the world. And I can't find a better one. A lot of people say, the FIFA World Cup. For me, man, it's March Madness. Like, when can we get to March? When can we hear that anthem going again, man? And, like, when can we see some madness happen? And just describe that trip to Denver. What were the reactions with the team seeing Gonzaga? I know there were some similar faces over there, so you guys kind of had an idea what they were going to do, and you guys played really well. Describe that really quick trip to Denver, obviously, but, like, man, like, you guys put on a show. And in that first half, you had me real excited. Let me tell you that. David and I actually got to go. Yep. We were sitting front row, and just seeing you guys out there was like, this is crazy, man. It's like awesome. A week ago, I don't think any of us saw this coming. So describe the feelings, because that I'm sure WAC Vegas was cool. Then it's just a whole nother level in March Madness.
Yeah, it is. Honestly, being in March Madness, this was my first time, but going, it honestly didn't even feel. Of course, it was a basketball game, but it didn't even really feel like a basketball game to me. It honestly felt like more of a performance, Mm-hmm. Being out there, it honestly felt like a stage instead of just a regular basketball court. And, of course, that's probably just because, like I said, that was my first time being there. So, but it was a lot of fun, bro, and it was just a blessing to be able to experience, because I previously have played for coaches who have been multiple times, and at my old school, my coach used to always tell me, like, you've never really experienced college basketball until you went to the tournament. So every time I would hear him say that, it would just make me want to go. But of course, that situation wasn't working out. So when I came here and we were actually able to go, it was just, man, it was just fun, man, fun.
Well, one thing that I never saw from you all year was, I'm gonna drive to the hole, and usually I'll finish with some crazy land like and one. You said, nah, I'm going to dunk on a guy, and you almost had the poster of the tournament.
Yeah.
Just, honestly, just off the bottom of that backboard, right, or
Yeah.
of that rim. You probably want that one back, but like I can tell you had a little more pep in your step. You're like, okay, I'm feeling good right now. Was there just a different? You explained that ferocity that you had the first game of WAC. Was there kind of a similar feeling there? Like, all right, it's the world against us here. Let's go shock the world.
Yeah, it definitely was. I definitely had a similar feeling, but I honestly feel like I don't know how my teammates feel about or how they felt about being out there, but I know being out there, the game honestly felt a little bit faster. It was a little bit faster being out there against those guys because I feel like as you go up in levels of college basketball, the game does get faster. You know? So playing against them, they kind of sped us up a little bit. So most of the things I was out there doing, I wasn't necessarily going through my head like thinking, oh, I'm about to do this, or this. It was just kind of just right off a reaction. So I mean, when I got there, I just felt like I could have dunked it, and he rotated over, and I missed it, unfortunately. But I mean, it wasn't something that I would have, planned on doing or anything. It just kind of happened.
I do feel like that was, from a fan's perspective, that was like, okay, these guys, this is the leader of the team saying we're here to set the tone. Exactly.
Exactly. We're here to play.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely probably did that, honestly. I mean, I wasn't thinking that, but it definitely did now that I look at it now,
Walt's like, yeah.
We definitely had a little spurt in the game where it kind of looked like we were on our heels a little bit,
Yeah.
I'm sure. Oh, actually, I'll ask you guys, like, well, actually, I'm gonna ask y'all this, all three of y'all. Can
Okay.
answer this. So, in the beginning of the season, and we were ranked, or not ranked, but I guess they had us like preseason in the polls or whatever. We were number one.
Yep.
How did you guys feel towards like? How did you guys feel towards like? Well, all the way up until conference play. What were your thoughts on our team?
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I mean, ups and downs, right? Like,
In regards to winning the championship, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think the injury to Javon, that hurt. I was like, man, like, we'll see. I mean, I was, I'll be honest, I was pleasantly surprised. Like I thought at one point I was like, man, I just want to win a couple games in this tournament. I'm just being honest, but like when you got to the tournament, when y'all got there, I mean, watching the first game, I was like, okay, this team's ready. Like I think throughout your guys's, had your season gone differently, I don't know if you would be in the position you were for that tournament, like mentally,
for sure,
physically, spirit. I mean, everything
happened for a reason.
Exactly.
But in the moment, it's hard to think that, right? Like in the moment, you're like,
yeah. I mean, it was
should have won that game,
Right.
Sure.
There was definitely those ups and downs, but I think, I mean, like we can all attest to, like looking back on that was for a reason, and everything worked out, and here y'all are.
Yeah.
I would say I thought it was a really good non-conference schedule. I thought you guys had a lot of good opponents and some tough opponents. And at the start of the year, I was like, this is a great opportunity to raise that net ranking and like become a top mid-major. Like I think
for sure.
And I was pretty positive that this team was capable of winning all those games. And you guys were in most of them, and you won a couple of them.
Right.
So after you didn't win as many as you wanted to, it was like, okay, you're probably gonna have to win the WAC to get in the tournament.
Right.
So I'm like, there's no reason they can't do that. And then obviously Javon gets hurt game 2 of the WAC, or game 1 actually.
Yeah, I think it was
game 1 against Sam Houston.
Yeah.
And that hurt. And that's like, okay, what happens now? Who's gonna step up? And as much as it sucked to lose Javon, I think every single person on the roster stepped up.
Yep.
Definitely.
Because
And
of it, yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird how life works. It's weird how God works, and just I don't know, man. I think every single person on the roster, literally everybody stepped up and they had a different role. And by the time it came to Vegas, all of a sudden it was clicking. And in Vegas, I remember not being exactly impressed with the UTA win. I think it was a little closer than you guys were expecting it to be.
Yeah,
in
honestly,
round
it
1.
was. Yeah, they played us well.
Yeah. But after that, I was like, all right, if they beat Seattle, they're going to beat Sam Houston. And I said, if they're beating Sam Houston, they don't lose in the championship. They're not going to.
That's exactly
And
how I was
then
thinking.
I took it a little further. I was like, if they win the thing, they're going to win the first round of the tournament.
Just keep it rolling.
So I was
All right,
looking
now,
good
don't
until
get
then.
don't get too ahead of yourself.
But yeah, I mean, you guys shocked the world, and you had, I mean, the people of the WAC, they don't love GCU, man.
Nah,
they don't. And
I feel like we're the most hated, honestly. Just
Yeah.
being here for 1 year, I honestly feel like everybody in the conference would have rather somebody else win. Just don't let GCU win. I
Yeah,
feel like that's
you
how
can see
everybody
that.
was thinking for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know what GCU has done in the past to make, I wasn't here for that, but yeah.
well, they win, and that makes people mad. And yeah, there's probably a couple other things, but like I could tell exactly. And you guys probably got everybody's best game. Like there was some
Definitely.
crazy game during the year where Tarleton State just
Yeah.
decided to go bonkers out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That was probably a weird
Didn't miss
experience.
a shot, yeah.
But
That's
but you
spanked.
can forget that, right? Like
Oh, for sure.
we made March Madness.
Yeah,
It doesn't
yeah,
matter
yeah.
anymore.
Yeah, that's a
Big
fact.
picture.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
a fact.
So let's move into your faith, because that's really the biggest thing about the Super Bowl podcast. We have a lot of awesome viewers across the country, really, that are looking for athletes to root for, because not only are they awesome on the field, but off the field or off the court,
Yeah.
they are warriors for Christ, and they are making a difference, and they're bringing people to Christ just by the way they act and the way they are on the court as well. And you're one of those people. And we saw after this March Madness run, you actually got to go home and you got to do a sermon at your church. Do you want to kind of explain how that all went about? And I'm sure kind of the nerves that you may have had, because that's something that probably wasn't necessarily super comfortable for you.
Yeah, nah, it definitely was not. It was the furthest thing of being comfortable for me. But
Yeah.
I mean, two of the members of my church back home, they reached out to me. I'm real close to them. They're almost like my grandmom and my grandfather almost. But they reached out to me when they found out that I was back home, and they just wanted me to be able to come in and speak to the youth. Just give them some type of inspiration.
Yeah.
And of course, I mean, even though I knew I didn't want to do it, for my own reasons, and just me just being a shy person, not liking to talk in front of people and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I knew what I had to say was probably important, or something that the kids needed to hear.
Yeah.
So I agreed to do it, and mainly I just tried to. I didn't talk for long. I wasn't up there for 10, 15 minutes. But I basically just wanted to talk about how, one, I feel like I know one of the things that kind of, when I was a kid, one of the things that kind of turned me off, or not turned me off, but just kind of made me look at people who call themselves Christians a little differently, was just how I thought some people just kind of wanted to display this like perfect image. People
Yep.
just wanted others to think that they're perfect, and they didn't do anything wrong. And I felt like as a kid, me seeing that, it just kind of made me not turning me off towards the religion or anything like that. It just kind of made me look at people a little differently.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to, reach out to them and let them know that it's not, being a Christian isn't about being perfect, It's-
Amen. Yeah.
I feel like I just wanted them to know that, one, I mean, God knows everything that we're going to do in our life before we even do it,
Yep.
Every sin, everything. So I feel like him already knowing that, him loving us in the way that he does, I feel like as long as we know that, as long as that we want to be forgiven, and as long as we are going about our life in a, I don't know, like in a manner to where we're not just, living frivolously, just doing whatever we want to do. As long as we are living that way, I feel like it's not about being perfect. I feel like it's the journey of knowing or learning different things, and learning, okay, God doesn't want me doing this. It's a lot of things that you have to go through in life that I feel like teaches you that, or how to be a Christian or a follower of Christ. So I just wanted them to know that, you don't have to be perfect just to be a Christian, and you don't have to be afraid of, being open about your faith or having people know that, you're a follower of Christ or you support God, I feel like being a Christian isn't something that's popular, especially as a kid. I don't think most kids not coming to schools bragging about how they just learned the Bible verse or, went to church or something like that. It's more so about, the shoes they got on their feet or the money they got, So I just wanted to put a little attention on that. And then lastly, I kind of just touched on how I feel like everybody got something that, God has put in them to go and chase, whether it's, in my case, a sport or, whether it's acting or being a doctor. I feel like everybody got, a gift that God has given them.
Spiritual gift.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And so I just wanted to encourage them to, just go after it, chase it. I feel like I know for a fact when I was a kid, one of my teachers, my dad actually went up to my school one time and he had a fit with one of my teachers just because I remember I had told her that I wanted to be an NBA player as a kid, and it was like we were trying to not find out what we wanted to do for our professions as kids, but I guess we had some type of assignment where we wanted to talk about what we wanted to do in the future, you know. Mm-hmm. And I told her I wanted to be in the NBA, and she wouldn't let me get by with that. I had to choose something else. I had to choose something more realistic.
We're safe.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, my dad went up there and had a fit. Like he literally argued with her. I'm talking about my teacher was crying and everything. But, he went crazy. But I wanted them to, just feel like literally like you can do anything. I feel like as a kid, if I would have known that, there would have been nothing that somebody could have told me to make me not want to go chase after my dreams,
That's so cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that there's some really cool options there. That's awesome. It's funny what your dad did, but it makes sense to the person that you are today. Like successful kids, they've got some parents who are hard on them, but also want them to hear the right thing. And if you wanted to go to the NBA, your dad wanted you to know that you could. Mm-hmm. And so hearing that from a teacher, and I feel like that's pretty common. Like a lot of guys that make it, they heard at one point that they weren't going to. Right. So, but somebody's got to, right? Somebody's got to, and it's cool that you pushed through that.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then I also just think it's cool what you're saying to the youth, because that's the generation that it's important right now. Like it is not the cool thing to do.
It's not
to be a Christian.
Not at all.
And this world is slowly going in the wrong direction. A lot of people would say, and it's up to these younger generations to flip the script here and get back on the right track. So how is that important to the platform that you have right now? How can you be a part of that change and that flipping of the script?
Yeah, I feel like honestly, I feel like it's important for me to always just put God first. I feel like when I want people to see Him when they see me, and I feel like that's the best way that I can approach it. I feel like, and now I feel like when people do see me, of course I may not be, preaching all the time or, but I feel like if you get to know me, you'll be able to tell that, I'm connected to the higher source. So,
that's right.
But I feel like just keeping Him first would be the way to go about that.
Yeah, and I think it's so cool because, we've talked about this on the podcast before, that you don't necessarily have to be a pastor to honor God, or you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to be in the church, incredibly involved every day in the church. I mean, God has called people to all kinds of different things, like you touched on, like being a doctor, an NBA player, whatever.
Absolutely.
Everybody has that purpose.
Definitely.
And, we all have the macro purpose of sharing our faith and being bold in our faith and leading people to Christ. But there's different ways of going about that. Yeah. And that's really cool that you've found basketball as a way to have that platform to be able to share that. And the people who get to know you see what you're really about. I think that's awesome, because there is this misconception, I believe, that you have to be doing all the right, the Christian things to be a Christian. That's not what it's about. There's things where, maybe God's called you to do something and maybe other people don't like it necessarily. And that's okay if that's the Lord calling you.
Right.
And people may criticize it and may think, what is this guy doing? Why is he doing this? And
Right.
that's not up to them.
Definitely.
It's a relationship between you and God, and we all have that, and we all have that purpose. And so I think that's a really good point you touched on there.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah. So going off both of you guys' points, the sport of basketball and the league, hopefully you'll make it one day. We're all hoping you will.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Man.
So it's a league not founded on the glory of God, not building His name, His glory. So what are some ways that you think you'll be able to glorify Him through your platform in a league that is so far from it?
Yeah. Obviously, I always do it through my social media, of course. If you follow me or
Sure.
anything like that, you'll be able to see. But I don't know. I definitely feel like I'd want to approach it in maybe a couple different ways. Maybe as much as it hurts me to say, I definitely feel like I would want to do maybe go and speak at, different places in front of, some different crowds and
Yeah.
stuff.
Sure.
I don't know, though. I haven't really given it a ton of thought. I know that I will do it, though.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's the thing, man. It's cool what happened with this podcast. Like, Super Bowl just happened one day, and talking in a Bible study about how we talk about this and we feel these ways. Like, God does these amazing things on our lives. But when are we going to go out on the streets? And when are we going to be super bold? Like, when are we going to be out there and like, oh, God's telling me to do this right now, and I'm going to do it, even though this would be really weird. And people around here are like, what are you doing right now?
Right.
Like, those are the moments that all Christians should strive for, because they're going to be uncomfortable at
Absolutely.
first, but the more you're doing them, man, not only is God just like smiling up there in heaven, but
Definitely.
he's also just going to bless you more and more. So yeah, I mean, the higher the platform goes, the more eyes that are on you.
Yeah,
But that's
for
just,
sure.
I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, it is. I think it comes down. One, I feel like it comes down to perception. Like, if you're somebody who's like really, worried about how other people perceive you,
Yep.
being bold in your faith is not going to be the easiest thing for you,
Sure. Yeah.
But I mean, like I said, I feel like you just gotta know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Like you said, being able to, do different things for God or in the name of God, it should automatically you should just think about how happy you're making them, before you think about, oh, how this person gonna think about me, or, just kind of try to keep that on your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's with you through it too. It's like he's not like, go do this and then kind of just leaves you and lets you.
Sure.
Like, the amazing thing is, and I'm sure you've experienced this with your basically sharing your story and sharing with your church. Speaking on that, just how God gives you the words to say. Like in those moments, like where it's like, man, I don't know, this is uncharted territory for me.
Yeah.
He comes through,
Yeah.
and that's where the growth happens. That faith that we keep talking about, like that's where it really nourishes and goes to the next level of just, like it is hard it's uncomfortable doing some of these things, but it's all for a purpose, and you're doing God's work in the process, and you're also growing in a relationship with Him.
Definitely. He'll bless you for that, for sure.
Yeah, and you mentioned staying connected to that source. It's not about having your own ideas and motives of what you want to do for the Lord. It's just about being obedient and letting Him lead the way. Like you said, like you said, you may not know exactly what He's going
Right.
to call you to do, but like David was saying, we're going to put ourselves in a position where if God moves, we'll move with Him. But if we try to move on our own, then that's not exactly what He's calling us to do.
Right. Definitely. I think I feel like God has a way of like teaching us, like just by allowing us to go through certain things that'll kind of just, like serve as like a guard from certain things. Like, we may have something in our head to where we think like this is good for us. Like, we know that we want this in our mind. It could be something of this world, but God may not give you the means to go get it, or I feel like He just has different ways of protecting us, kind of like he was saying.
Yeah. And there's a verse in Proverbs too that reminds me of how we may, make our plans, but the Lord establishes our steps.
Absolutely.
And so,
Amen.
there could be something in front of us that is like, this is it. This is all I want, and maybe it's not something that God has something greater for you, like a greater purpose, a greater intention, And so I think that's a really good point too. There's it can be anything, It can literally be anything. It can be a lead pastor one day for some. It can be going to the NBA for others. It can be being a doctor, being all these different professions. There's everywhere needs Jesus.
Absolutely.
And we have that opportunity wherever we go to be Jesus in that way. And we're not going to be perfect, but if we're representing him and we're doing our best, then God will use us in mighty ways. And I truly believe that. And he'll use you wherever you are next year. If that's the league, if that's back here or wherever that is.
In the canyon.
Yeah, in the canyon.
Lastly, another thing you said that struck to me was just about how there's kind of this, it seems like Christians are perfect on the outside, but you get to know them, you're like, oh, they're actually just as broken as I am. Like we all have flaws. And to get deep here, like, are there temptations or are there things that you have to battle through each and every day? Because the thing is, when you get closer and closer to God, the devil's got to work that much harder, right?
Absolutely.
He's going to throw new things at you. He's going to throw something at you that catches you off guard, and it gets you that one time, and all of a sudden it goes through your head. And when you're feeling these convictions, obviously okay, God's with me right now because he's making me feel it.
Yeah.
But are there things that you battle through with this level of success that comes with the territory?
Yeah. Obviously, I'm obviously living in Phoenix. I mean, you guys know there's so many things that you can get into. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like me personally, there's not anything that I'm not saying I'm perfect by any means. That I'm not at all. But I don't have any, addictions or anything like that I'm battling or anything like that. But I would say maybe just I feel like, I don't know, just my faith in general. I feel like at times the devil has thrown certain things at me that have caused me to maybe doubt God or, you know, get a little further away from him in our relationship than I'd like. But I mean, I feel like the most important thing is just, pursuing your faith every day. Like you were saying, I think being a Christian kind of just had, to some, it may have like not a negative connotation, but people just automatically assume when you say you're a Christian that you live a certain type of perfect life, when that's not at all what being a Christian really means, It's just, one, you're a follower of Christ, but every day, like I said, you got to pursue that relationship with him. And there's going to be things that you have to, battle within yourself to be able to get closer to God, So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that you keep going back to that point of this misconception about Christians. I mean, we're not perfect in any mean. We're all broken and we're all sinners, and it says it throughout Scripture. But if we could live perfect lives, then there would have been no reason for Jesus to die for us.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Like, he did that for a reason. He lived a life that we couldn't, and he died a life we couldn't have. And so that's the big misconception when it comes to Christianity, that there's this set of rules that we have to follow. But that goes back into the old covenant. And then Jesus broke that old covenant, and now we have the new covenant.
Absolutely.
So we set our eyes on him. It's not our own doing. It's his doing, for sure.
Yeah. And the amazing thing with that, too, is, there's not any inherent, you look at the difference between, the saved and unsaved, right? We're all broken. We all have that in common, and it's just about us accepting Jesus Christ into our lives. That's the only difference. And through that, we have that relationship with him, and we're able to walk with him and learn from past mistakes, or learn, continuing to grow on that journey. But there's nothing about Christianity that makes us perfect. That's never going to be achievable. And I think going off that point is something I've even battled with, right? Is wanting to be perfect and falling short of that, and not beating myself up over that, because we're not perfect. Right. We can't be. And that's why Jesus died for us. Mm-hmm. So I think accepting that and accepting his grace, but like you said too, not getting distracted with the other things of this world and putting them, just kind of living however we want. That isn't, what God's calling us to do either. But just being present and just doing our best for him and knowing that God will take care of the rest.
Definitely.
And the difference is between the saved and the unsaved is the saved are like, okay, I'm going to accept that I'm broken.
They're
Yeah.
aware
People
of
that aren't
it.
saved
Yeah.
are like, they
Yeah.
don't even understand. God's not even in their lives. He's not convicting them. They're doing things that maybe they shouldn't be, and they don't feel anything. But when you're saved, you're like, I'm broken. I need a savior. And when I do something that I probably shouldn't have because I'm human, God's going to let me hear it. And that's why I accepted him into my life, because I need that.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
So to wrap things up, we're getting near the hour. And thanks again for coming on. And thank
I
you, for
appreciate
Walt, for
y'all,
coming
man.
through. We appreciate you.
Yeah, I brought a special guest.
Is there anything, I know you've already spoken to local kids, but there are a lot of youth and kids that are coming up that want to be in your position someday. And what would you say, not only as an athlete, not only as a student, not only as a Christian, but like encapsulating all of that together, like what would you give the advice to that younger generation on how to best handle it and really put the Christian before the athlete?
I would say it was easier for me just because my father had brought me up that way. You know, my father is a devout Christian, so a lot of the, you know, principles that he instilled within me. So I would say the main thing would just be to always know that whenever you put God first, he'll reward you. I feel like once kids realize, like, when I realized that if I do my best, like he said, if I do my best, God will literally handle the rest, you know?
Yep.
Once he sees that you're passionate about something, I feel like he'll literally order your steps to where you think you, like, in my head, I never would have imagined that I'd be in Phoenix, you know, playing basketball right now. I just knew that I wanted to get to the NBA. And so I feel like, one, just being aware that it's like literally scrap your plan. Your plan is out the door. Like, don't even worry about how you want things to go, how things went for others, and
That's right.
you know, just literally go into or approach life like, I'm just here to, you know, use the gift that God has given me to the best of my ability, and he's going to place me where I need to be.
Cool.
Amen.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think to go off that, this world is going to pull us so many different ways. But when we have our fellowship with Christ in the right place, life just becomes so much more simple.
Absolutely.
He gives us a new perspective, and he calls us just to live each day as it is, not to worry about tomorrow, not to worry about the past, because we're forgiven, and his blood covers us. So we just
Absolutely.
walk by his steps, walk by faith, not by sight. So
Any last words?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys touched it really well. Yeah, we're redeemed. That's the difference. And so when you think it that way, the biggest crown or blessing we could ever have in this life is ours and Jesus. And so we don't have to worry about what the future looks like. We can just live in the present and just be focused on him, and he's going to, it may not be our way, like, you know, what we think of, like you were saying about, you know, our plans may be way different than his, but his plans will always be better than ours because he knows our purpose, he created us, and he's for us.
that's right.
Well, I think that's going to wrap things up. You know, for Ray and Walt, I know you guys have a crazy couple weeks ahead of you guys with meeting up with NBA teams, man. Like, this is the dream. This is the moment. And
Absolutely.
I just hope you guys know you have so much support here from us here, but also this entire campus. We're rooting for you guys.
Right.
We want the best for you guys. And we pray that God's put you in every step that you're supposed to go right now. And I hope you guys remain faithful, even when things may not go the way you're expecting them to, that
Absolutely.
you're going to end up exactly where he wants you.
Absolutely.
And man, I hope it's exactly what you guys want. So
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate y'all. For
Can
sure.
can I put you on the spot real quick?
Go ahead.
This is a question I've asked a lot of athletes. Do you have a favorite teammate? And I know it might be hard to put you in a position right here, but since one of them's in here with us, but can you give us an answer?
Man, favorite teammate? I don't know, man. That's a tough
He's
one.
looking straight at you.
That's a tough one. I mean, obviously, I feel like if anybody knows me, they're gonna say Walt or Bake for sure. Because just I feel like the connection that we've had and I'm pretty sure they feel the same way. But well, I'd hope. But us three, we developed this type of connection that I never have experienced any time in my life before. I've never been as close to, another guy like how I've been close to these guys.
That's cool.
Right. But
Really putting them on the spot here.
yeah,
You don't got to answer that.
I don't have an answer.
Yeah.
That's the right answer to deflect it.
Right.
So
Yeah, he asks you, but he doesn't want you to answer it. So that's just how it goes. But all right, thank you so much for joining the Super Bowl podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Come back for more. We're gonna have more episodes all summer. Let's watch the journey of Ray Harrison, man. It's just beginning. He just had quite the year at GCU. Maybe he'll run it back here one more year. Maybe he'll be in the NBA. But you're gonna see him. That's one thing we know. Make sure to follow him. Make sure to give him the support that he deserves because he's gonna continue to put God first. So, all right, that's gonna wrap things up. Thanks again, Ray. We will catch you guys next time. Peace.
Yeah.